My name is Pete, and welcome to my garage. All right, since we now have our center support, our sun gear here, everything in, I even took the sealing ring sizer off and everything, we're ready to put our intermediate clutch assembly in. Alright, that's these clutches we have sitting over here. Now the first part of this is going to be a waved plate, clutch plate, or it is supposed to be a waved clutch plate. Well, this is interesting. I don't have a wave plate. I'm pretty sure on my intermediate clutches that I'm supposed to have a wave plate as my first plate. And you can look at this. We have witness marks of where this originally was, and that is definitely not a wave plate. That's just a regular old clutch plate here. So we have 4 frictions for the intermediates. I believe there's supposed to be 4. That's correct. This is getting weird. I've got 4 new ones, so that's looking good. And then I believe I have some steels for that. Yep. And I have some new steels for this one. Okay, and none of these are a wave steel, but I guess if I really need an extra steel, I can stack one on there if I need. I'll check them and see how it goes. So, we're going to start, and we're going to measure after we're done. We're going to start stacking them and see what we got. Not to mention, the stuff I'm looking up on service information is information for a 97, and my transmission's a 93, but SI doesn't go back that far. So I'm using that, and I guess we'll see what the differences and stuff are. Let me just make sure my thickness of this plate is correct. I'll zero it out. Alright, this plate is 76 thousandths. The new one, 74 thousandths, so not much different. Okay, so since these were a little bit burnt, not too bad, but I got new ones, so we'll see what we got here. I'm just going to start swapping them. So started with this one, it's out of here. I'm actually not going to just toss them, I'm going to save it so we can look. But the steel goes in first. You want the steel to be the first thing to go in, because you don't want to be trying to apply a friction down with no backing. Don't believe it matters what direction it goes, even though it does have one tab that is slightly different. But go ahead and put that in. So we're just going to go one at a time, back and forth. Steel and friction. The next steel. I guess I need to look on that side and see if it matters where I put a gap or not. I don't think it matters. Well, according to SI, it doesn't seem to matter. Alright, I got a friction. Next one's a steel. Back to a friction. So we got a steel, friction, and one more steel and friction. Steel and then friction. And I replace them because they're burnt, right? But they're not. toast. I've always been saying that this whole time. Just kind of wondering what's going on. Did this thing have low fluid at some point or what? Because we haven't really found, other than a few bushings, really a cause for concern. And I'm going to clean the back of this off. And we'll check our clutch pack clearance whenever we're done with a feeler gauge and make sure it's good. If it's not good, then we'll adjust it. All right. Now you can see right here there's no teeth on that part, and that's going to go towards this side of the case where there's no teeth, because there's teeth everywhere else, and well, it physically won't fit if we do that. So okay, now make sure the flat side where the clutches had been riding is facing down. That should go without saying. Okay, and then we have our final snap ring right here. Just make sure we clean it up before we put it in. And it doesn't appear that the snap ring has any certain way that it goes, but it does say to put this opening at the 9 o'clock position, and from where I'm standing, 9 o'clock is towards this side of the case over here. Now, anytime you put clutches in, always make sure they're not too tight. Okay, I do have some up and down clearance. All right, what is the spec for the clearance here? Let's look it up. According to SI, it should be anywhere from 40 to 107 thousandths. Now, I'm just going to go all the way to the maximum part of specs because I think I'm above that. I don't think there's any way that this is anything less than 100. So right here, this is about 100 thousandths, and I'm pretty sure. Well, I cannot fit that in there. Let's see what I got. Actually, I can't even fit that in there. Okay, this right here is about 86 thousandths. Ooh, that's close. I can almost fit in 86 thousandths. All right. Here we go. We'll add all those up. 18, 19, 20, 21. This is 60. That's 78 thousandths right here. Still can't fit it. We'll drop a couple off a few off the top, and here we'll grab the next 4 down. So if I were to add these together, a 15 and a 16 is going to be 31, and a 17 and a 14 is another 31, so 62 thousandths right here. Okay, 62 thousandths fits. Let me go over this side just to make sure it's the same. That fits, so it's more than 62 thousandths. Which actually, start thinking about it, the spec of 40 to 107 thousandths, if I'm in the 60s, that's looking pretty good too. Okay, 17, 18, 19, and 20. 18 and 19, that's going to be 37. It's another 37. 37 plus 37, that's 74. Okay, 74 thousandths right there. Close to the middle of spec. So that's actually looking pretty good. I'm actually kind of surprised that that was as good as it was, because it looked like it was a lot more. And you can kind of feel that come up, and there is some piston travel and everything, but all that's looking good. All right, the next thing to go into our case here is going to be our brand new manual 2-1 band. I really wanted to, I could lube up those clutches, but to be honest with you, it's going to be fine. Yeah, and then once there's a little bit of tranny fluid soaked into those clutches, my clutch pack clearance will probably actually get a little bit lower since they're dry right now. So we'll be fine. Now, inside of here, hopefully you guys can see this. There's a lug right here in the case, and that's going to coincide with this hole right there. I need to make sure that's on that because that's our anchoring point on the case, and then through here, through the valve body is where the servo is going to push on this. So we'll drop this in there, make sure it's anchored properly. Okay, that's good. That's going to sit right there. All right, now for the rest of our direct clutch dual feed mod, we're going to need to get into this drum. Already got all the seals on there, the brand new seals. And here's my spring. I just need this drum right here. And we already have a little check ball right there to help bleed out some of the fluid. But since we're putting fluid in the inner part and the outer part, we need to make sure we bleed off enough of it quick enough, because if it doesn't bleed off enough of this fluid as it's spinning, it's going to push all the fluid to the outside, which then it could build up on the outside and actually apply the piston just a little bit and burn up the clutches. So what we like to do is we like to give it a way to get rid of that fluid. I'm going to do it on the opposite side as the check ball there. I'm going to do a small little hole right there. Most drill bit sets, the smallest drill bit you can get is going to be a 1/16 of an inch. And so this is pretty small, and this is the drill bit I'm going to end up using. And I actually got two of them because they're so small they like to break if you're not careful, and knowing my luck, I will probably end up breaking the dang thing and then not have another drill bit. So they were a couple dollars a drill bit, nothing too bad. Okay, so the piston seal on the piston is going to go pretty much most of the way down this vertical ledge right there. So I'm going to want to drill my hole practically in the corner but down. All right, and so it's going to then have a hole that exits over here. In order to get this started, I'm going to use a centering punch right here, just so it doesn't want to walk the bit. And this is always a good idea when trying to drill small little holes. So let's get it where I want it. I'll do it a couple times. Now I don't, hopefully you can see, hope you can see that little dot right there. Now you don't necessarily want it on this vertical part because that's where the seal has to seal whenever it applies. So we'll go right here on the horizontal part, and I'm actually going to set my drill to a lower speed. I'm going to take it nice and easy with this because I don't want to damage or break this drill bit, so I'm not going to push too hard. Okay, now, teeny tiny little hole right there. All right, now notice it's on the actual bottom part, it's not on the side or really in the corner, so it should not interfere with that seal. I just need to get this cleaned up and it'll be ready to go. You can see kind of where it comes out at the bottom there. And so any residual fluid as this is spinning, when it's not in reverse or third gear, will then allow the fluid to exhaust out that hole. Now, because I'm exhausting any bit of fluid that's in this thing, I need to make sure I get fluid quickly to that. That's why we're going to have to drill our spacer plate just a little bit bigger, I believe. Now notice on the back side of this direct clutch housing, we actually have a one-way direct clutch sprag. Making sure it turns in one direction but not the other. We're good there. And you can see our our output shaft actually is going to end up splining to this down in the transmission. So I need to get the piston installed in here and the spring and everything put on. So first thing I'm going to do, just like we did on our other pistons, we got to lube up our seal. So let's lube up the seal. Okay. Now we just need to get this guy down in there. Alright, we are all the way down in there. And you can see if somebody wanted to actually fit more steels and stuff in there, you could turn down this ridge, I guess, on a lathe, which I think some people do, in order to fit an extra steel and friction inside of there. And you can see on this one, I think they throw away this little wave plate right here. But I'm just going to keep it. I can see where that apply ring was. I'm an idiot. I need to get the spring on and the snap ring. So I'm going to need to compress this spring enough to get the snap ring on. Now GM does have a special tool here that it goes like this. So we can compress the spring with I guess it's like a bridge or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily work very well, I don't think, with this guy. So let's just see how this will work. So we're on our final one, our direct clutch here. I don't think I can use that tool. Make sure that snap ring's all the way down in the groove. There we go. Spring loose. Alright, that one is in there. Snap ring's in. Our spring's on there. Everything's good to go there. That's really nice. I'll put in my clutches, check my clearances, and I will air check it here in just a second. Okay, here we go. Clutches. For the direct clutch, starting with our wave plate, although like I said, some people I believe do away with this to because it cushions the shift. I don't necessarily care too much about the cushion. I want it to shift nice and firm. I can add some pressure if I need to through the tune to tailor that. I don't want this thing slamming into gears. It's going to be my daily driver. So I don't think I have any steels left. The steels that I had on here looked pretty good. The direct clutches did not look burnt, so I didn't get steels for my direct clutches. Alright, so I do like to at least wipe them down if I'm going to reuse them. Notice these look like the same steels that I believe we had in our forward clutch. Alright, now let's need to make sure we alternate. Got some fibers here. Alright, I have 5 fibers and I believe 5 fibers here. Looks like it. So we'll go fiber, pitch it. Trade them out. Make sure they're the correct ones. They are. Alright, last fiber, and then we have our apply plate or backing plate. I guess this is probably the backing plate because it apply piston and everything. Let me clean this off. Okay, there we go. Apply piston is, or an apply piston, backing plate is in. Always look at the snap ring, make sure it's not beveled anyway. It doesn't appear to be. And it looks like we have the witness marks from the top because it's always pushing up on the clutches. So we can get our snap ring in there. Wherever my screwdriver went. Alright, always make sure that the snap ring goes all the way in the groove. I worked on one time where one of my fellow technicians rebuilt one, and I think he didn't get the snap ring all the way in the groove, and then it came out on him. That was a kind of a bad deal. It was on a 3.5R clutch, I believe, on a 6L80. And those are a little different because actually there's a couple spots where the opening of the snap ring is supposed to go because it won't seat in all the way because there actually is no groove on them. Okay. So, clutch pack clearance is here. Okay, in order to check the clutch travel on this, we have to use a dial indicator with it inside of the transmission, and you're supposed to attach it here and then reach down with the dial indicator. Much like we did with the forward clutch, we need to use a dial indicator to do it. The fluid to this is fed through the sealing rings on our center support assembly. So that's where it gets the fluid for our direct clutch. So we need to install this in the transmission in order to check this. The specification for this is anywhere from 50 thousandths to like 100 and I think it said 27 thousandths, so it's quite a range. And I guarantee you we don't have 100 thousandths. We may have 50 thousandths. It actually feels pretty good to me. I actually like the way it feels. It just has that little bit of play where we can feel the difference. It's just because of this plate right here, I don't think I can get a feeler gauge and get an accurate gauge, especially if I have to put over 50 thousandths. They don't bend when you have 50 thousandths of feeler gauges. So I need to put this into the transmission. Question is, how do we get this into the transmission? It's hard to hold, right? It's very difficult to hold. What I could do is actually install this in the transmission before I put the clutches in, and then set them in and put the snap ring in. But there actually is a special tool for this. Looks like this. This tool right here can grab a hold of that spring and allow me to put this in. Now it's kind of nice because I also have to be able to twist this to get it, or to get these to line up. I have to get that to line up with my intermediate clutches right here, all while also putting it in through the middle of this band. And that band better stay on that anchor pin or else I'm going to be a little upset. So that's going to be fun. Okay, so this is really stupid. There's a special tool we stick in there that lines up all these intermediate clutches here. I didn't grab it. And it wants you to apply air into the case to hold these things applied while you try to also install the direct clutch. So this is going to be fun. And I need to make sure I lube up all these Teflon seals a little bit better. I just want to make sure that none of these seals get messed up right there. Just for kicks, I'm going to resize them, make sure they're down there. Now this is going to be really fun to do. It wants me to apply 80 psi of shop air to hold that applied while I put this direct clutch in there. Whew. Alright, man, I hope I can get through that band nice and easy. Okay, our seals are sized. Alright, I'm going to apply some air right here, just like it says. However, all my clutches aren't lined up. Okay, they're pretty close, so I lined all those teeth of those clutches up, and I'm going to lower this in. I do think I need to reach down there and grab that band and pull it up. So I think it's getting caught. See, that band is really hanging me up. You can see I was hitting right here on this band. I need that band held up. I'm going to pull those clutches out. Since I can install them with this in there, since I can install these with this in there, I'm going to pull these clutches out. Because it is fighting me tooth and nail because I can't grab a hold of that, even with said special tool. So now I can grab it. Okay, that's much better. But can I get that band in place? So there is a bolt hole for the valve body that's right down there by the band and underneath the band. And one of the problems is this band, as you can see, keeps dropping down. I need to hold it up, but I have to have it on that pin. So really, if I can get this through here, somehow hold that band up, oops. Okay, so I can hold the band up with this pick while I pull this back, and maybe get it in there. Oh, Pete's Law. Ah, that worked. Yes, holding that band up definitely worked. Now I gotta just work this down into the, oh yeah. If I turn the out check, does that help? Maybe not. Alright, how far does this have to go down in there? Yep, the $1,000,000 question is, how do I know I got that drum all the way down to where it needs to go? Okay. Well, I assume it's in all the way, so I'm going to start now putting my clutches in. Put in there. Alright, and the snap ring. Okay. Yeah, that was a lot easier to get that in versus having all the clutches in here. Alright, let's get these centered up for our next clutch, which is going to be our forward clutch, I believe. Now that our direct clutch is in there, we now have our forward clutch here. And our forward clutch, these teeth are going to have to drop down into our direct clutch teeth, just like we just did on that last one. Alright, we need to make sure our thrust washer's there. That's looking good. Now I need to drop this down. Now I need to make sure silver side's facing up on that bearing. We have our new bushings in here. And there is a special tool here to aid in installation here that goes under the teeth of that, because this thing's kind of heavy in order to get it in here. Let's see if this helps us. And we're just going to basically move it back and forth. There it went. I heard that thing bottom out. Now, how do I know everything's down far enough? Well, I can look through the speed sensor hole right here and see if it lines up with the reluctor teeth. Alright, and it also it says I can measure from the top of the reluctor to the pump mounting surface, and I can measure that and see how far it is. So this distance should be 3.85 to 3.89 inches. Alright, so we can use this part. We can set this up on the edge here and check the depth. What did I say? 3.89. About that. Yeah, it's pretty close. This actually might be in all the way. I'll definitely know whenever I try to get the rest of this in there. That's going to also suck if that's not right. Now, according to SI, our next thing we need to install is our overdrive clutches, or our fourth gear clutches. However, in order to install this, to ease installation for the rest of it, we're actually going to take the clutches and everything out, and then we're going to install them later. But we have to get this housing in because it goes around the outside of the rest of the turbine shaft and everything, and it bolts in with this bolt right there. So we're going to take off the snap ring and the clutches. Alright, so it's going to ease in installation there. We need the bolt hole facing this side, and it should go in there nice and easy. so it sits down, and it fits in there pretty tight, and it sits down on a ledge and everything, and you can see right there that's all sitting down where it needs to be. I think we're good there. And I just need to line up this hole, okay? And then I need to put my bolt in right there, my new bolt. Just make sure that hole is lined up perfectly. Now, does everybody remember what size Torx that was? All right, it's a T40. The T40 Torx. Okay, the torque spec on this, it says 17 to 19 foot-pounds, so it's not very much. Not compared to our bolt down there, which was like, what, 29? So 17 to 19 foot-pounds. 19, 18. All right, here, we'll do 18, just split the difference. It says, do not over torque this bolt. It's aluminum, so it'll probably pull the threads in the fourth clutch housing. Ooh, that doesn't feel good. That's not good. Boy, that's really messed up. I did not over torque this at all, and this bolt is broken. This aluminum bolt broke. Wow. Crazy. I don't know if you can see it. There's a crack right there. Because I didn't twist it one whole turn, it didn't actually break. But it's split. Crazy. Okay. Well, it's a good thing I got another kit. Whew. This one also has that bolt. And it is not broken yet. So I'm going to definitely have to take it easy on the torque. Man, I knew that felt like it was getting there. I knew I should have stopped. I'm actually going to check the torque specs on the kit to see what it says it's supposed to be. SI says 17 to 19. This says 12. Yeah. As I say, I didn't feel like I was that much over 17 or 19, or I obviously wasn't there. But man, okay, here's 12 foot-pounds. Double check. Yeah, 12 foot-pounds. That's better. Okay. Now, the next thing to go in is going to be our turbine shaft here. Notice that my seals have been nicely sized. I also have my pump seals right there. And then this should seat all the way down in there. Should go in nicely. Maybe I need to resize them for a second. Also I have that brand new bushing that fits on there, so it should be pretty tight. Should be a tight fit. Alright, so that's seated. This is lower than the level of the pump and everything, so that's all looking good. I like that. I'm going to throw a seal sizer one last time on there if I can, just to make sure. So it's been a couple days since I did this and sized those. So my next thing is going to be to put my fourth clutch back together that I took out. You can see why we took it out to begin with right there. Because man, I'll tell you what, this would be difficult to get this piece in if all these clutches and everything were in there. So now we can get these, there's a lot of teeth on these seals, God, a lot of teeth on these clutches, and trying to get all that in there would be just an absolute nightmare. So that's why we take these apart like this. All right. And we'll get our snap ring in here on our fourth clutch, or overdrive clutch, whatever you want to call it. Alright, just make sure that snap ring is all the way seated in the groove so it doesn't pop out. That's all looking good. Now we're pretty much ready for our pump, but before we do our pump, we've got to go through our pump and make sure that it's going to be okay. So, boom, we're going to take a break from that. We're going to head over to the pump again. Okay, so I'm going to take my two pump halves back apart, and remember, this thing is cast iron. This guy is heavy. Alright, now we have our two halves of our pump. Now notice that the dots on this pump right here are facing upwards on both the internal and external gear. That's how it needs to be in order to be correct. If you get that in there incorrectly, notice this comes all the way to this side. On this side, it's recessed down there. That's because when you put the torque converter in, there's a little taper there. Trying to get the torque converter in is nearly impossible if this was flipped over. That's why this is like that. Also on this side over here, we want to replace our bushing, our torque converter support bushing right there. So we're going to take our external gear out of our pump. We're going to get it all cleaned up and everything, along with our internal gear. But they don't fit together very good whenever they're not in the pump. We're going to clean out this pump and everything, push out that bushing because it is it's not looking too great. It is staked right there and right there, so to make sure it doesn't push out. So it looks like we need to make sure that we press it this way and press it in. So I'm going to clean this up. Also, there is this external seal right here, and this seal we need to knock out also. So we'll get that seal out of there so we can knock our bushing through, put a new front pump seal in it. Definitely needed a hammer here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drive the outside of the seal in, and it'll basically break its seal with the outside. And then it'll be able to be pulled out pretty easily. I say that, and then it probably won't be easy. Alright, so, you know, it kind of seals to the outside with this red sealer kind of, and you just drive it up and then it'll pop it out. It's a little easier to do whenever the pump's off versus if it was all together. Now, in order to get this bushing out, there's a couple different ways we can do it. You have to have the pump taken apart pretty much. Now, it looks like there's a lot of junk in here, but I think it's because this pump's been exposed to the elements through that, you know, that seal, because there's no torque converter on it forever. So, let's just drive that out, shall we? I think I can get a bushing driver that possibly fits it. Is that going to be it? All right, there it is. So through the bushing driver set, found one that's the right size. And I'm just going to drive this bushing through. And we'll match it up with a new one. It's always nice when you can just drive the bushing straight through. Now hopefully the camera can pick this up. You can see on this side, it's not that worn. Well, there's a little bit of scoring. This side is a lot more worn. You can see all the way through to the copper. I would assume that this is on the bottom, right, as this is sitting in the car. Because a 4L80E's torque converter is very heavy. And you can see where they stake that so it doesn't push the bushing out. All right, let's drive a new one in. We'll match that up in our bushing kit. We'll get a new torque converter bushing in there. All right, looks like we got our new bushing. Then we need to make sure we stake it in there too, because we don't want it walking out on us. Now I don't want to drive it through too far. Actually, I'm going to clean this pump up. I'll do it. I'll spray it off. Actually, after I get this in there. So that fits our driver pretty good. Now the parting line on this bushing is right here. I don't want to put the parting line where I have to stake it in those two spots. So I am going to offset the parting line. And just a little bit more over here. Okay. Well, actually I can feel it right now with my finger right there, so I'm just going to go a little further. Okay. Now I just need to get a little punch and stake that real quick. There we go. Okay. So now this thing should sit on our torque converter a lot better and better support our torque converter snout that where it goes into this pump. Now I do have a couple more bushings. I have one on this side and over in this side too. So I'm going to have to clean this up and replace those also. And then I'm going to have to check my boost valve and everything inside of this pump. But before I do that, I forgot, I have a seal to replace right there. I'm going to clean this out. All right, match up our old seal to our new seal. That's not it. Grab the wrong seal. Ah, that's better. Okay. Okay, now this seal is pretty much flat over the top, so really, like I'm still going to pack this garter spring so it doesn't fall out because it's going to take a couple whacks. And there is a special tool. The special tool actually goes in here and it pushes this back so the garter spring has some pressure on it and it won't fall off. That's why I like doing the little trick with the transgel there, and then I'm just going to stick a flat plate over that. Okay, that's close. Okay, make sure it's seated on all four sides. Now we do have this seal right here that's also on the pump. I'm going to take it off, but I'm not going to replace it yet because we're going to take that seal off and we're going to use the housing of the transmission to line that up. I'll show you that little trick. But I am going to take the seal off right now. Maybe. Squeeze the seal, or with a pick, that'll work. Notice this is the square cut O-ring, but they had the same thing on a 4L60E until a new engineer came in and designed a new seal for the front pump outer seal. That leaked all the time. That guy should have been fired. But these seals never seem to leak. But then they replaced it with one that did, which makes perfect sense if you don't think about it. Okay, I'm going to clean out the inside of that, put the rotor and the inner and outer gear, I guess it's not really a rotor, an inner and outer gear back in it, and that half of the pump will be done. Then we can move on to the other half of our pump. Let's say some builders will sit here and they'll sand this pump flat and everything like that, which, I mean, I guess is probably something good to do, but I've never had to do that. Now, I guess I could take a straight edge and check it, and maybe you'd be surprised at how bad it is, but I don't really think it's necessary right now. Not for this build. Okay, remember, like I said, you need the dots facing up. Make sure you check the teeth of the gear for wear and everything like that, but this one looks pretty good. Boy, that's really strange. I could not get these things to fit together whenever it was sitting outside of the vehicle, or outside the vehicle. And I was sitting on the bench, yet now it fits together perfectly. I don't know. Alright, so I lined up those dots. I don't know if it matters or not. Let's see. The next time they come around, yeah, they're not even lined up next time. It doesn't even matter. But make sure that they're down all the way. This half of the pump is done. I'm going to set it aside because I don't want anything to get on it. Okay, now, so that was basically the pressure side of the pump. This is kind of the business side of the pump, where it's got the pressure relief valve for the torque converter, the boost valve for reverse boost valve and everything, and a couple of the bushings. So I've got to replace some bushings in here. I also have a couple of Teflon seals that we have to replace. It's just going to be like the same on the rest of the transmission. And then I got to clean up those gasket pieces that are just hard as a rock on this thing. Okay, now there is a shim right here, so you got to be careful that you don't lose this shim. And this is the shim that sets our in play on the transmission. I want to make sure I don't lose that or forget it, so I'm going to set it there. Remind me if I screw up and forget it. But, alright, we got a couple of valves in here. How do we get these valves out? That is a fantastic question. So, I think our boost valve is going to be over here. There's little roll pins, tiny little roll pins in here. And you can see this one holds this valve in. I'm going to knock that roll pin out, hopefully. Let me go see if I have a roll pin punch that's that small. Oh, jeez. Okay, so push the roll pin out towards the other side of the pump, right? So the other side bolts to here. So since they're bolted together, the roll pins don't push out. So that actually comes out fairly easy right there. I'm going to put a paper towel down. I don't have a manila folder on me right now. Else I'd probably do that trick. So right now I'm going to put a paper towel down. I'm going to go one valve at a time. Alright. So on the other side of this is actually our boost valve, and I got to use a pair of snap ring pliers on that thing, a small little pair of snap ring pliers. So I need to make this remove an internal snap ring. Alright, so we can see here. Okay. You always got to be careful with these things because, man, they can come springing out. Okay. All right. That snap ring is out. Why won't it come out? There we go. Let's push that boost valve out of there. Okay. Whew. Alright, so this right here, oh crap. Alright, so this right here is known as the boost valve sleeve right there. Now this boost valve fits in that sleeve like so. Alright, and this is how we boost up the pressure for reverse basically. Let me make sure, I'm going to need to make sure that I have this installed in the correct direction, which I'm sure I do. You can see the witness marks there. So that is going to go like that. That spring did go there. And a separating washer, I'm pretty sure that's correct. I'll verify before I put it back together. Okay, now does the rest of this valve train, okay, so the rest of the valve train is going to come out this way. So I'm going to keep it in order. And this one right here is our pressure regulator valve. We want to make sure that it moves freely, right, and kind of give it a shake and make sure that it's not leaking. You know, you don't want it to have too much movement and everything because then it could leak in between the valve lands and everything like that. But it felt pretty tight in the bore. I think I'm going to be good. I don't see any witness marks where it's like sticking or anything like that. It was really weird why the valve plug doesn't want to come out the other side, but why do I even need to take it out? Okay, I'm just going to stick this back in there. Okay, that's going to go back in there, and then I'll slide the rest of the valve train back in after I clean it up. So what a lot of people do on these transmissions is they like to replace this boost valve with a different upgraded boost valve and sleeve. This one actually fits in that sleeve extremely tight. I don't think I'm going to need to even change that at all. Looks good to me. We'll clean it up really good. We don't want anything, any little bit of foreign debris in here can cause problems. Alright, so we can also do the fall test and everything with our valves and make sure that they can freely fall through the bores. So I'm going to stick this in there. And since there's no springs in it now, this should be able to move in the bore pretty freely. Okay, once I get it through where it needs to go. Okay, so this, you can see that pressure control valve, that moves pretty freely. Alright, there's a little bit of, wear that you can witness right there, but it doesn't stick at all. And if I go like that, and I just sprayed it. All right. As long as it's not bound in its bore, gravity, it falls. So that's kind of the gravity test, or the free fall test right there. All right, we want to make sure our boost valve freely moves in there. It's very free, it's good. All right, we'll slide our springs in there. Then we have the spacer. Now this boost valve sleeve fits really tight in these things. So now that that's in, I can put the snap ring back in. We've verified that that valve can now move correctly. Now going through the pump is painfully tedious. Same thing with the valve body, but I'm telling you, it can really screw up your build if something ain't right with them. And so you have to make sure every single valve in this transmission is going to be working properly, because if you don't, that's when you end up running into a problem. Here we have another little tiny snap ring right here. Okay. I'll have to see which valve this one is. It's this long one right here. Huh. It's weird. Right now it is really solidly in there. But it does have a roll pin on this side too. What the deuce? I feel some pressure now. Okay. You got to be really careful, because man, when these things come shooting out, you don't want to lose any of the pieces, that's for sure. There we go. Alright, so there's this plug, and I can see a witness mark where that, where this was, right? So I can kind of keep track of my valve train, see how it goes in there. So now we got a spring. Snap ring goes on the other end. And I guess now it's going to move this way. Man, didn't want to move before. Now it all seems to want to slide out this way. Man, that valve fits really nicely in the bore. It is like a perfectly straight shot. If you like have any twist on or anything, it doesn't want to come. Alright, and it looks like the plug basically on this other side. And that's, I think, all that's left in there. So let's see what this valve is. So this valve right here is for the torque converter clutch apply. So anytime the torque converter clutch is applied, this is the valve that's going to direct the fluid to the torque converter clutch. So this is pretty important for your TCC apply. That bore actually felt pretty good. The valve is in there nice and tight. I'll just kind of spin it out. Make sure there's nothing in it. Alright, now I'll go ahead and reinstall this valve. Be careful when using air around your valve train. You can pretty easily just blow all your stuff across the room. Alright, now we need to make sure that we install this in the correct direction. And you know, it's pretty easy to get this installed backwards. However, I'm pretty sure that the spring went on this end right here, not at this end. However, if I refer to service information and look it up, it shows a pretty good diagram of this. And it does. It shows the long end of this going towards that spring. All right. Now, if for some reason any of these valves actually don't move very well, what you can do is you can take a little piece of crocus cloth on like a hanger or something like that, put it on a drill, and you can go through those and it'll clean it up. Especially on these cast iron pumps, you can clean up those bores pretty easily. All right, make sure that little plug is good. Now getting that thing in there straight is going to be tough because it's so narrow, but I think I just did it. Okay. So that side's looking good. Now I just got to push this plug back in a little bit on this side because I got to get that snap ring back in that I apparently didn't need to take out. So you got to make sure you get this all the way in there. Right now the snap ring is not all the way in. So I'm pushing down on the plug. There you go. Alright, so I pushed down on the plug further than the snap ring made it all the way down to the groove. If you don't get it all the way down to the groove, boom, there goes your torque converter clutch apply. Okay, what else do we have? We have another small little valve here. Actually, we got this little guy right there. That I'll have to see what exactly it is, but I can. So if you push these out with like a punch, you see my punch is still in there, so it's actually holding it back. So then I can push with my screwdriver, get my punch. Oh, there it goes. Oh crap, I actually heard some stuff go flying. That is not good. Screwdriver, get my punch. Oh, there it goes. I'm gonna have to look all over the place for what all this is. Found the spring. So I found the plug. So I got a spring and a plug. Is that all I have? I'm sure there's a valve still sitting in there. So I'm going to go look on service information, see if it's just a plug and then a spring, and then I'll get back with you. Whew, thank goodness. Okay, so this valve right here is going to be what they call your torque converter limit valve. So it doesn't matter how much pressure or line pressure you have in your transmission, whenever your torque converter clutch is on, whatever the spring pressure of this spring is, if we have overcome this spring pressure, it's going to compress this valve and it's going to bleed off that extra pressure. This is called your torque converter limit clutch, or torque converter clutch limit valve. So it doesn't matter how much line pressure you put into the transmission, your torque converter clutch is not going to see that pressure. So actually, this one, see there was a lot of debris actually on that spring for some reason. So it's a good thing we're cleaning it off. Because that debris that's on this screen, the debris that's on this spring right here could have gotten into this valve, causing problems. It's because this thing's been sitting so long, it didn't have any lubrication on there, and so it just sat there and pretty much rusted. So I need to make sure I clean out that bore real good. Yeah, I can hear that boost valve moving now. Okay. Now I need to reinstall this one. Since it came shooting out, it's going to be nice and fun because, alright, so converter, alright, gravity test, it just dropped right through there. I think we're good right there. Alright, let's get our spring in there. And then our plug. Get it cleaned off. You can see, alright, this is the side. It has witness marks on it from where this was. Remember, it goes in through this side over here. It's almost like I need a bigger screwdriver. This one's got a pretty strong spring on it. So come on. Okay. Now the very end of this roll pin on this side was flared out, so it didn't want to go in very well, so I flipped it over. Now it wants to slide in nice and easy. There we go. Okay. Alright, so those valves are all looking good in there. I believe that's all of them. And we are ready to put our pump back together. Oh yeah, bushings. Got to do the bushings. Alright, this one over here should be pretty straightforward. It's going to be just like all the other bushings. Alright, I'm going to have to stack some stuff up like this so I can have something to press on in order to pull that bushing out, because I got to have room to pull up on this. I might be able to just use a bearing splitter and stick it on there. This is give me quite a bit of room. Okay, so I'll get that in there, hopefully though. Okay, so that's going to sit there like that. Just like on all the other bushings, nothing new here. Nothing to see here, same as what we've been doing. So I'm just spacing the bridge up with this. Oh wait, never mind, this works. Heck yeah. It's quite the hokey arrangement that I have right here, but this is working. Now this bushing was in here further than flush, so it was kind of a ways down in there. I want to make sure I don't knock this thing off of the bench. Alright. Boom. Got that one out. Sometimes you just got to get creative. I can mash it up and slam a new one in. Alright, we got our new one right there. Now this bushing is the one that goes all the way down here and rides way down there on this inner part of this. So this goes all the way down there. As you can imagine, all these bushings are sitting here supporting something. So this is supporting the input shaft where it comes through, but that also helps support it inside the torque converter because it comes all, the turbine shaft goes all the way through the torque converter. All right, so bushing driver here, bushing there. All right. Alright, so that one's good. Now I have to somehow do that one. And that one might prove to be a little more difficult. However, I might be able to... Oh yeah, I can drive it from the back side with this punch. Which I guess I should have done before. Stuck in this other one. Alright, that one's out. Now, it's time to put a new one in. Okay. Now this is the bushing that sits up here, supports the shaft right up there. Alright, so that's flush right now. I need to go further than flush though on this bushing. It goes quite a ways down there. So it looks like I need a socket that fits that, which is bigger than 18, so 19 or 21 maybe? 21. Actually, looks like it might work. Alright, there we go, we're finally in there. Whew, okay. Now I need to make sure I spray that off. Get that off of there. Oh yeah, and I have a couple of Teflon seals to do. It's just like the Teflon seals in the rest of the transmission. It has its own sizer, or installer incisor right here, right? So, I'll go ahead and do these. And then I'm calling it quits for the night, and we'll put the pump back together next time. It was already down. I didn't slam it down. It was already down. Okay. Okay, we got new bushings, new seals. Our valves are good. All we got to do is bolt this pump back together and get it into the transmission. I'm going to leave it off right here. I'm going to leave that on there, let those size. I'm going to go edit a video, even though it's like midnight. I'm going to edit the next video and everything so we can get this show on the road and get this thing finished. All right, we'll see you next time, guys.